Hi, welcome to the StarCommand podcast. I am David Seymour, and this is my good friend Alan Bragg, and we are here to talk all things college and NFL football. We have a special episode in store for you today as we're 3 games into the NFL season, so we're going to spend the majority of our time talking about his Dallas Cowgirls and my Washington Commanders, and we'll jump in right ahead with a little bit of college. We got probably the biggest game of the year coming up this year in Georgia and Alabama. Georgia's obviously fallen from the number 1 spot. Their kryptonite over the past few years has been Alabama. As a matter of fact, the last time that they lost a regular season in-conference game or a regular season game, period, has been to Alabama. The last couple of years when we thought they were going to be national title contenders, the SEC championship and the game against Alabama has been their kryptonite. Alabama obviously back in 2020. Yes. And obviously Alabama without Nick Saban, so it's not the, Jedi master versus the Jedi student anymore. Alabama's got a whole new regime over there with Kalen DeBoer, but that offense has been on fire. Jalen Milroe looks like a real Heisman contender. The Georgia offense has been kind of sluggish. We talked about last week how they seem to have this mentality that they can just kind of flip the switch and turn the game on whenever they want to, and they're going to come out on top. We saw that 2 weeks ago with Kentucky. Obviously, both these teams have had a bye week, 2 weeks to get their teams prepared, so Kirby's had a chance to maybe run some of that out of them or push up some of that out of them or whatever he's got to do to get that idea of you can just turn the game on whenever, because against this Alabama team who still has a lot of the same talent that they had when they had Nick Saban as the head coach, plus they've garnered some new talent, some transfers that have played with Kalen DeBoer before and all of these different guys. Alabama's legit. I haven't seen the step off that you normally see when you have a great coach like Nick Saban retire and move on. It feels like they've just picked up right where they left off last year and started pushing forward. How do you see this game playing out?
I see Alabama being the stronger team coming in. Like you mentioned, Georgia's kind of off to a slow start there. Everyone is riding, when you look at Georgia, like you mentioned, they've got 40 regular season wins in a row. I mean, and that dates back to 4 weeks into the 20. Their last loss was that in the last 4 weeks of the 2020 season. So they have been dominating. At the same time, Alabama's been dominating, just not to that extent.
Right.
But Alabama is coming in. They've got the 6th best scoring defense. They're only allowing 8.7 points a game. Now, that's great, right? But Georgia's got the 3rd scoring defense at 6 points a game.
Right.
So there you are. You got 2 stout SEC defenses that have been as advertised at what you would expect Alabama. The difference is the offense.
Correct.
Georgia's not scoring points. They're middle of the pack, 58 scoring offense at 31 a game, where Alabama, where they were the 6th scoring defense, they just so happened to be the 6th scoring offense at 49 points a game. So dominating defense, and they're got a dominating, top 10 offense, top 10 defense. So, and they're at home. So I think this is where I think Alabama's going to get them. I expect a great game. Battle it out, kind of a fill it out first half. And then, big plays. I think Alabama can hit the big plays. I trust Jalen Milroe's athletic ability more than I trust Carson Beck. A lot of people are high on Carson Beck, but I don't see it.
Right.
I will take Jalen Milroe, in a one-off game anytime. So that's what I see. I see Alabama kind of handling business.
And I agree with you. We kind of saw that last year in the SEC championship game, right? Jalen Milroe versus Carson Beck. And in that one-off game, Jalen Milroe was the better quarterback. A lot of Georgia's offensive struggles, there's no Brock Bowers this year. There's no Ladd McConkey this year. And those guys were all hurt for the SEC championship game last year. I know we always talk about you can't compare last year to this year. But what I can compare is the results that I'm seeing without those players on the field, right? Those players were hurt during that SEC championship game, and they're no longer there. And Georgia's offense seems to have sputtered out. It's not as dominant as it has been before. And I'm with you. You know, I've mentioned several times on this show that Carson Beck's a local kid. He literally went to high school right down the road from where I currently work at Mandarin High. So I love to see my local boys succeed when they get to the next level. But I haven't seen what everybody's trying to put on this kid's shoulders. You know, preseason they were talking about he's a Heisman front runner. He could be the number 1 overall pick. And I haven't seen any of that coming into this season, and I haven't seen any of that as this season has progressed. And I don't know. Alabama Tuscaloosa is a tough place to play, right? It's very rare for a team to go into Tuscaloosa and beat them, especially in big matchups like this. That crowd is going to be hyped and ready. Everybody's been listening to all of the national guys talk about that Georgia and Texas are going to play 3 times this year, once in the regular season, once in the SEC championship, and, you know, once somewhere in the college football playoff. And I think those guys in Alabama are like, I know we lost Nick Saban, but don't forget about us. We're still the cream of the crop in the SEC. We won the SEC championship last year. We beat this same Georgia team last year for the SEC championship, and you're not even mentioning us because Nick Saban's gone. He ain't played none of the games. Yeah, he helped coach us, but he wasn't the talent on the field, and that talent is still there. And I can't remember what his name is, but they have this kid. He's 17 years old, not even old enough to vote. Reclassified himself. Yeah, Williams is his last name. But, man, that kid, I don't know that Georgia has anybody that can cover him. The speed that he has and really the precise route running that I've seen in the few clips that I've seen of him. We're going to get the full take on him tonight. You know, I will be glued to the television for this game because it is by far the biggest game that we've had this early in the college football season in a long time. You know, Texas, Alabama was real big last year. And so I think the whole nation's going to see whether Georgia's for real. You know, they've lost a lot of those key pieces, and it feels like that these kids that are on this team now are riding on the coattails of everybody else's success and expecting that because they wear a G on their helmet and they wear red and black and they play between the rose bushes that it's just going to be handed to them. They just have to show up on Saturdays and they're going to make it. And I think if they carry that mindset in, they're going to get trounced. It's a +1, -1. I think Alabama is favored by 1 point, probably just because they're at home. So I think it's really going to all depend on the mindset that the Georgia players run into this game with. If they run into this game with we're Georgia, we just show up on Saturdays and it happens for us, Alabama's going to cook them. But I hope for a good game. I hope it's not a cooking.
I agree on the mindset being huge on this one. I think the gift that the Bulldogs got 2 weeks ago was that Kentucky scare. Mm-hmm. So you're not going to be in a better chance to coach those kids than Kirby Smart was that for these last 2 weeks, right?
Right.
Everything you just riding coattails, the success of prior players and the classes that have come through there. Hey guys, that's no more. Right. We can go to Lexington, Kentucky and get our butts whooped. And we almost did. Now we're going to Tuscaloosa. It's wake up time. It is actually, you know, oddly enough, even with how confident we kind of both feel that Alabama's been the better team, they're the ones that are +1.
Okay.
So the odds makers are, you know, they actually know, you know, they're saying, hey, not too fast, everybody. We're going to, you know, even though Alabama's home, we're going to give them the point. And I think Georgia's problem has been rushing. You know, they're like middle of the pack, like 80th, I believe it was, 84th in the nation at 145 yards. 145 yards seems like a lot in the NFL, but in college, when you're Georgia, that's not.
And most college programs, most college programs are running for 200+ yards per game if you're a good college.
And when you start paying attention to stats and you realize, wow, almost 150 yards a game is literally not even middle of the pack. It's 84th, so 134 teams, I think, total.
Yeah.
And so Georgia not being able to run the ball has been their issue. They're not coming out and just running down your throat, and then that makes the play action with Beck, open up everybody. And I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball against Alabama. You couldn't do it against the defense of Kentucky, and everybody's just a star. You're going, okay, we're going to just add stars to the defense. We're going from 3 stars, a couple 3 stars sprinkled in there to all 4 stars. I think that's going to be the difference. I think Milroe makes up for some of the rushing that Alabama may or may not be able to do with some big plays with his legs. But I agree. I'm excited for that game. What a blessing for a Saturday still in September to get the 2 Titans of the SEC at it, which is something we usually don't see till November.
Right.
In the SEC championship.
Correct. And so talking about, college football programs and success and not success, we had discussed on Tuesday, we wanted to kind of bring up the Colorado Buffaloes this week because I was high on them to begin the season, had them in my, top 12, make the college football playoff. Then they had that bad game against Nebraska and got trounced.
And we buried them, didn't we? We just quickly buried
them. These guys are cooked. They're done. They're over with. And they've rattled off 2 really big wins in a row. They blew out Colorado State, which, if we remember last year, that was a very controversial game. It was really close. And Travis Hunter got hurt. There was a lot of trash talk and all of that going on. And there was all of that this year, but Colorado went in and really handled business this year. And then there was this Baylor game that they played last week. And I remember I didn't even pay attention to the game, right? I wasn't on my radar. I didn't care about what was going on with it. I sold off Colorado. And I'm watching a different game, and it turns out that it's an absolute blowout, and it's kind of getting boring. And I get this notification that it's 24-24 in this Baylor Colorado game. And I'm like, let me go over here and check this out because I really thought Baylor was just going to wipe the floor with Colorado. It was going to be the end of their season. And I turn it on, and immediately Baylor scores a touchdown, and Shedeur Sanders is getting sacked every time he touches the ball. And I was like, oh, it's going to be the same old thing. And then Shedeur throws this last-minute pass. I mean, literally, they get the ball back with like a minute 45 left, 1 timeout, and somehow they managed to hold up enough protection, and Shedeur finds a way to throw probably the most beautiful ball I've ever seen thrown in college football. And they go into overtime and win this game. And now they're sitting at 3-1. Another conference game this weekend against UCF where they're plus 14 in. Actually, the odds makers think UCF's going to handle them. And they might, we may be giving Colorado way too much hype all of a sudden. But I like what I've seen is they took that loss. I watched a lot of interviews with the offensive line and with Deion Sanders, and they all took accountability for how bad they were playing and said, we are going to turn this around. And then the next 2 weeks they did. I don't know that I'm ready to put Colorado back in the college football playoff, but I am ready to keep my eye on them and see what they end up being for this season, right? The coaching looks different. The accountability from the players looks different. These guys look, whatever group of transfers and all of that he's put together this year look like they're ready for the spotlight. They're ready for the scrutiny, and they're able to take it and build something positive out of it, which is what they were unable to do last year. It seemed like when they got down and got beat up by the media, that was the end of their season. That 4-game stretch, and then they had a bad game, and here comes the media pouncing on them, and they all shut down last year. And it does not look like this team is ready to shut down.
It does. It looks like that they've got some fight in them. They're winning close games. We've talked about it before. They've got dogs on that team. We don't worry about them. The Travis Hunters, the Shedeur Sanders. It's everybody else being able to handle everything. And, they're making enough plays and not winning, maybe get behind the first half, but they're fighting and able to get these victories and be 3-1. They could not be more, their offense could not be more night and day of, they are literally the fifth best passing team in the nation. Shadur passes for the fifth most yards, and they are the fifth worst rushing defense. Excuse me, fifth worst rushing team. So
Right.
they are 130 out of 134 teams rushing the ball. Fifth. And then they're fifth. They're fifth passing. And I mean, that's just balance. There is none. That is the opposite of balance. That's why they could go down to UCF and get blown out. And the odds makers do that because
Right.
you cannot continue to have Shadur running for his life, throwing 50 passes a game and consistently win. You just can't do it. You're going to go get waxed one week. And then the next week you may come back and win a close one, but you are going to go take your licks if that is your offense. And that's they've got an all right schedule coming up. UCF's not a powerhouse. It's somebody that I expect to be a pretty good game. I think they'll play well. They're not full of injury and get injured last week. They got 3 ranked opponents: Kansas State, Utah, and Oklahoma State on the schedule. Utah probably being that difficult game for them. So not a brutal schedule. They let's just say they lose all 3 of those and beat all the other teams. They're finishing with 8 wins, 9 wins. So great season for them. They're happy to see them doing well because it's nice, watching the hype train of Colorado and seeing them travel and do well.
I feel like college football is more fun when they're doing well, right? We've always enjoyed the extravagance that Deion brings to the game, whether it be the pro game or baseball or whatever it was. It was always, what's Deion going to do next? And so I think him coming into college football the way that he has, all of the fanfare that was around this and all of the hype that was around it, we didn't get to see that in its full glory last year because it kind of fell off the cliff real quick. And I really thought it had fallen off the cliff real quick this year. But I think that college football is more fun when Deion Sanders and the Colorado Buffaloes are winning and we're able to get those sound bites and get all of that media praise and attention. It brings a different element.
They're polarizing to where you love them or hate them. And what that does is make us watch. Believe it or not, more people will watch if you hate somebody and want to watch them fail than you do to succeed. And it's across the board with teams. You see the teams that get viewed the most. They usually have the biggest hate fan base that hate them the most. I can attest to that with my Cowboys. We're on all the big games and game of the weeks because people love to watch us lose. And that's what's happening in Colorado. I think Deion haters are coming out of the woodworks. They were in the bushes at first. Now they're out full blast and not ashamed of it the way they fell in their face last year. Right. So that's what makes all their games so exciting.
Most definitely. So let's get into some college football picks. I know that you had our stats from last week. I'm pretty sure I was 3-3 from what you said Tuesday. And we have and we have made final decisions that LSU and Missouri are no longer allowed to be bet on. They stay off the ticket. I'm not betting for them, and I'm not. Missouri and LSU have spoiled too many tickets for me. I will not ever put them on a ticket again, for or against. So we will just stay away from all of their games for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I figured it up. Let's see. So in college, I'm at 7-10. I went 3-3 last week as well. I'm sitting at 7-10. So I'm gonna make that up this week. Try to be an average Joe. Get back to 500 on the year. I'd be happy. I'll give you my picks. See, I told you I had 2 columns. Here we go. Gonna go Utah minus 9.5.
Okay.
Washington State plus 6.5.
That's against Boise State, correct?
It is against Boise State.
Okay.
Yeah, the Utah and sorry, you usually write down who they're playing, but then I got Air Force or Texas Tech -3.5, Air Force -3.5, and I just like what the Armed Services Academy, the service academies are doing.
Yeah.
Seems like a very strong year for these guys. Even with Thursday, was that Army?
Yeah.
Dominated Temple.
Yeah,
And then last but not least, Ohio State -23.5.
I like that one. Yeah, I think the armed services every few years or so they find these dominant teams and kind of just rip off a couple of nice wins and have you wondering what they might be able to do. So I definitely like you giving some love to the armed forces schools. So for me, and I actually saw this line shift. I had Kentucky +17 against Ole Miss, just with the way they were able to play defense against Georgia a couple of weeks ago. And Ole Miss kind of always has that one game that they shouldn't have that kind of makes us wonder if they're really for real. And I think against this Kentucky defense that was able to really shut down Georgia's offense a couple of weeks ago. I like Ole Miss to win the game, but not by 17. And that line's actually shifted. It's Kentucky +15 now. But I still kind of like that. I think Ole Miss wins the game, but not in a blowout fashion. After what James Madison did to North Carolina last week, I'm going to take James Madison -21 over Ball State. Ball State hasn't played very good, and James Madison obviously has a torture of an offense. So, and I'm gone.
Hung up 70 in Chapel Hill. We'll go figure.
Right.
What was that spread?
It was the -21.
Spread
oh,
21.
Yeah, -21.
-21. I mean, obviously, I didn't figure because I went the other way, thinking North Carolina's going to handle James Madison. And I mean, looking into that game 5 minutes in, it was like 40-20. I'm going, what is going on in Chapel Hill? We're playing basketball?
So the next pick I got is Auburn is a pick'em against Oklahoma. And I like...
That's interesting because last night when I was looking at that, they didn't even have the spread. So
right,
I guess they've been having a tough time.
Right. So the original spread was like minus or +1, and it kept shifting back and forth throughout the week. And then this morning it became an absolute pick'em. There is no spread. It's just -10, -110 on both the spread and winner. So essentially you're picking a winner. Oklahoma looked not great on offense at all. That's the game that I was watching when I switched over to the Colorado game. I was watching the Tennessee-Oklahoma game. And Oklahoma's offense is absolutely inept. They have a great defense, but that offense is absolutely inept. And I think they're making a change at quarterback this week. I don't know that that's going to help because they brought that quarterback in the second half, and he was not able to get anything going against Tennessee. So I think Oklahoma is going to have a real rough year this year, and we're going to see the second part of that this weekend in Auburn.
I'd be scared about that. I mean, I don't want to talk you out of anything, but we beat them last week, and they looked inept on offense. Yeah. So you're talking about the woes of Oklahoma's offense. Auburn looked bad. I mean, there was a period in the second half where we were both just turning the ball over. You know, if not every play, every other play. It's just back and forth. So
yeah, it'll be an interesting game. I think I like Auburn in that. And then I got Oklahoma State's +5 against Kansas State. I think it's a pretty even matchup. I think 5 points is a lot of points. I don't know who wins the game, but I do like Ollie Gordon for Oklahoma State to maybe have a field day against Kansas State. And then I like my Texas Longhorns -37.5 over Mississippi State. Florida beat Mississippi State last week by 25. So if Florida can beat Mississippi State by 25, and they're absolutely a garbage can this year, and I feel like 40 points is an easy spread for us to get to tomorrow or today. So I think Arch Manning's making his second start of the year, his first SEC start. They say Quinn Ewers will be back for the Red River rivalry, so we'll look for that to happen. But I think this Mississippi State team is just bad, and so Arch Manning should have a field day this week.
Crazy to think that spread. You've got almost a 40-point spread on an SEC game. That's wild.
Right. Well, and the crazy thing is that Florida was only favored by 6 last week, and they just, with their 2-quarterback system, just went into Mississippi State, and I mean, they were in Starkville. I'm pretty sure we're in Austin this week. So Mississippi State coming to Austin, it better pack a lunch. So it's going to be a long day.
What stops those games from being like that, lopsided like that, is a quick touchdown from Mississippi State, right? Like a first scoring drive, or because Texas is going to do their thing. But if Mississippi State can get some confidence early, that's the only way they've got a chance at keeping this close. Right. And it could be off the rails by the end of the first quarter. It could be 21-0. But if for some reason it's 10-10, 14-7, and then that's when the spread is. You got to actually watch those points, because you might not get there.
Right.
If Mississippi State don't get an early first quarter touchdown.
Yeah, defense has to come to play for us, and I would love to see us. We've played a couple of really bad teams or really inferior teams, because, there's a couple of teams like University of Texas San Antonio, right? They're not a great team in, per se, the SEC, but in their own conference, they're a really good team. They've won their conference a couple of times. They're a decent team, but they're inferior to a Texas or Oklahoma or and we've had a couple of these games where it's been a shutout all the way through halfway through the third quarter or into the fourth quarter. I'd really love to see our defense go in and just completely shut somebody out. I know it's hard to do, but I think that would go a long way to building some confidence as we start this SEC schedule. Obviously we're going to play Oklahoma here in a couple of weeks, and while that's now an SEC game, we've been playing that game for eons now, So that being said, we're about to get into the meat of the SEC schedule. We're going to have the Georgias and the Floridas and the different schools. And so I would love to see our defense get a confidence booster against a subpar SEC team. So, all right. So let's
before we leave college, just want to get your thoughts on that spread. Arkansas A&M. A&M's -4.5. They play in Jerry's World down there in Dallas.
Yeah. The last spread I saw was actually Arkansas was +6.
It's moved to 6?
Yeah. And I actually like Arkansas +6 against A&M. A&M's been decent, but they haven't been great. They've struggled against some high-powered offenses and against some good running attacks. And you guys at least have that, right? Your guys' offense looks different than what it has in years past.
We got 2 guys in the top 10 in rushing in the SEC, a quarterback and a running back. So yeah, and it's always a battle with those guys.
Right, and so I haven't bet on that game in particular, but if I was going to make that bet, I would take Arkansas +6. I don't know if they win it, but I think they keep it close. I don't think that they go down to Jerry's World and get blown out.
Nice. Thank you. I agree with
that. Now, when you guys come to Austin, or actually, I think we're going to Fayetteville, aren't we?
Come to Fayetteville.
Yeah.
You guys come to Fayetteville.
That'll be a different story. We'll
that won't be no 37.5 point spread, I guarantee you.
No, it probably won't. It'll be about 25.
13. It'll be about 13. Calling in now.
All right, so let's get into what we really wanted to do this week, which was Commanders Cowboys. We couldn't leave the college football completely aside. We had to make our picks, and of course you have to cover Georgia, Alabama, and maybe a little bit of Deion. But what we really wanted to do was have a Commanders Cowboys show. We're 3 games into the season. It's not quite a quarter of the way, but but a decent sample size of and you guys are actually 4 games into the season, so we're about a quarter of the way into the season for you. You guys had a nice win on Thursday night against a division rival, lost a couple key pieces. Washington's, 2-1 and atop of the division because we had at the time we had the only division game played, so we were a half a game ahead of everybody. I don't know how the standings work when you guys have played 4 but have more losses. Not quite sure, but so we really wanted to sit down and break down our own teams and have that discussion. So since you guys played most recently and you guys have lost a couple of pieces, you guys have had a couple of really rough games before that pick-me-up win. I think you call it your antibiotics, your little medicine pill that you guys needed playing the Giants. What are your thoughts on the Cowboys so far this season? What do they need to do maybe before the trade deadline? What do they need to do maybe scheme-wise to try to get something going? What are your thoughts on where the Cowboys stand at this point in the season? And where are your expectations now compared to where maybe they were before the season started?
So, fortunately, as a Cowboys fan, my expectations are the same. I think we're a playoff team, and then we just need the ball to bounce our way in the playoffs. It's been very disappointing watching our defense not being able to stop people's running game. If you can't stop a team is rushing 8-9 yard chunks, 10-yard a play, it's just devastating and it's hard to watch. And getting the ball, just teams marching down on you. It's also been very tough watching our running game. When we first started, the first game that we had against the Browns, Ezekiel Elliott got to start. And Rico Dowdle got carries. Deuce Vaughn got some carries, and we were, didn't know which direction we're going to go. I'm very happy that Rico Dowdle is getting our first carries. He is our back. He's the most athletic. He's durable. He's been a comparable backup all the years with Zeke back in the day, with Tony Pollard. He's been very comparable. He doesn't fumble, and I think he can do good things. We just got to give him the carries. He's got to start getting 20 carries a game. Finally he got in the end zone Thursday night against the Giants, which was great to see. I'm excited about hopefully building off a run game, getting some play action going, because that's just something we're not able to do. Pieces, unless there's a linebacker that comes available that's a downhill thumper, I don't know what free agent is going to help us. We have the back end help. We have, we've got the defensive lineman, the pass rush. Overshown that guy has been very impressive. He's out of second year out of Texas.
Yep.
Demarion Overshown. He was, I think he was the very high pick for us.
He was actually a second-round pick. He was a high second-rounder. Everybody thought he'd go in the first coming out of Texas, but, he ended up falling to the second round.
And he was injured last year. He's coming back this year, and he's got 27 tackles so far this year. He's leading our team in tackles. He's all over the field. He's fast. He does, bring the wood. And so that's exciting seeing that, but gosh, it just the DeMarcus we were talking before we got on, and Micah Parsons being out now, injured, and nothing's luckily so serious that they're missing a lot of time. But with Micah and DeMarcus Lawrence being out, like, oh crap, there's our defense. What are we going to do? Those guys weren't doing anything. They weren't doing anything anyway. Micah Parsons has 14 tackles on the year, 1 sack.
Right.
4 games. This dude is supposed to be the most valuable player on defense, and I love Micah Parsons. I want him to be a Cowboy for as long as he'll play. I love him. I love his engine, his motors, everything about the guy. I like his podcast. I like what he says. He puts it out there, but he's not performing. He's not getting. If you watch the game, he's getting double teamed and he's lining up all over the place, and it's just ineffective. He is ineffective. He is the game against Lamar. Lamar was toying with him. If you're going to rush hard outside, we're going to go inside. If you're going to rush inside, I'm going to go outside. And Lamar had probably 5 plays that game where he just stared him down eye to eye and said, "All right, make your move, Micah." And he went the other way, and he's faster than Micah.
Right. Well, he's faster than most everybody in the NFL, but yeah.
Yeah. And that means they can run away from him,
Yeah.
Especially in these offensive linemen, the offensive tackles. He's not getting. Then they keep the Tom Brady and even Troy Aikman kept saying on Thursday night, and then Brady all the other. We've had Tom Brady all the first 3 games. How many pressures he gets? Pressures. But I'm sorry, they're calling pressure. They're getting a little lenient on this pressure thing nowadays because he's not hitting. How about we talk about a pressure being when you knock the guy down, or you're putting a hand in his face, or you're deflecting? Well, pressure is this word pressure is so lightly used now that I'm like, these guys are getting pressure is every play. Then right, being a quarterback in the NFL is pressure. So what we're defining pressure. Let's stop counting how many times Micah Parsons getting pressure. How many times he's knocking him on their butt?
Right.
And it's not been. And then that's the defensive side. The offensive side, we're kicking too many field goals. We have the best field goal kicker in the league. That's obvious now. What a blessing he is, stud. He's tried 13 field goals this year. We're just, and that's why the games against the Saints, the Ravens got out of hand early, is because they're scoring a touchdown. We'll go kick a field goal. They score a touchdown, field goal. It's 14-6, and then here we go. You're already in a hole.
Yeah.
So and that comes back to getting that bounce. We got to start getting our running game going. Which I'm excited about. I think as long as we turn it over to Dowdle, because if you've watched Zeke, I love Zeke. Another guy I love, but he just doesn't have. He's not explosive, and you got to be explosive in this league.
Yes.
So, and I think Dowdle's got way more than the rest of the backfield.
So, question here: as a Cowboys fan, I've heard a lot of Cowboys fans talking that it's, this is all Jerry's fault. Jerry didn't go and do anything in the offseason. He could have had Derrick Henry. I've heard interviews with Derrick Henry where he had literally just bought a house in Dallas and was praying that the Cowboys would call him, and he never even received a phone call. You've got Jerry saying things like we couldn't afford him, which maybe is true. You just gave Dak $60 million a year, CD $33 million a year, and you still have to pay Micah, plus Trayvon Diggs got whatever it was, $25-30 million a year, whatever. At the time, he was the highest paid corner in the NFL right before he got hurt. So there's a lot of salary cap going to certain places. But then you look around the league and you see teams that have all of this salary cap money going to all of these different places and are still able to go and acquire talent. We look inside of our own division, right? You have the Philadelphia Eagles have Jalen Hurts is getting paid, A.J. Brown's getting paid, Devontae Smith's getting paid, Saquon Barkley's getting paid. You have all of these guys in Philadelphia getting paid. Same thing in San Francisco. You've got all of these guys that are getting paid, and yet somehow Jerry Jones says he can't afford to spend $9 million on a running back when the current running back room has $5.4 million being spent on it. So your inability to find another $4 million in the salary cap world where everybody seems to be pushing money around and hiding it here and, converting it here and doing this. CD's the only real wide receiver threat you guys have. There for a while, it was CD and Michael Gallup, and that seemed to work out, having a secondary option.
Frustrating watching.
And so my question is it time for Jerry Jones to just move out of the way? Not that I think he'll ever do that, but
it's been time.
Yeah.
Been time. Jerry is, love or hate the guy. He is good at what he does, and that is promoting the Dallas Cowboys.
Right.
And that's why we get in trouble with these contracts, because it's how long can we get them to talk about Dak? All summer, all season, all OTAs. Oh, we're going to sign you, Dak. You're going to get your money. We all know it. Yeah. And then you wait till kickoff, before a game, right at noon on a Sunday.
Right.
Why? Because so people talk about CD. You made CD hold out, not coming to practice, because you knew you were going to give the money. You always give him the money, and he's still the only owner. I don't know. I'm not, because I follow the team, but I can't imagine. Did Dan Snyder do a talk show? Was Dan Snyder the first guy that was the soundbite?
No.
After a Commander You
No.
are these other owners? Is Arthur Blank for the Falcons? Are people going straight to him and he's the lead on Sports Center and
Right.
everyone's Twitter? No, but unfortunately, this how old Jerry Jones is, probably 88, some upper
86,
80s.
88. Yeah, he's up there for sure.
That's the first person that's getting a microphone stuck in front of him. That's what I want to change. And just give it to Steven, give it to your son. Just step back. But God bless him, he owns a team, and who's to tell anybody you gotta, but it just there's so many other people that need to speak on this, that need to be making these decisions, and just let him be there, celebrate the team, and get him another Super Bowl. But God, just quit sticking a mic in front of his face.
And
Quit
and that's
putting
the
him
key, right?
in.
You said get him another Super Bowl. And I think that's been the absolute problem with Jerry Jones ever since he let go of Jimmy Johnson, right? If we look back into the right after Jerry bought the team, it sucked for a while, right? He was hated because he got rid of Tom Landry, the legendary Cowboys coach, and he brings in Jimmy Johnson from the University of Miami. Jimmy Johnson pulls off the greatest heist in NFL history, trading Herschel Walker to the Minnesota Vikings for every pick that they had, and starts building this team. You end up with Troy Aikman, and you end up with Michael Irvin and Emmitt Smith and the Nate Newtons and all of these different pieces, and he builds this team and goes and wins back-to-back Super Bowl championships. And Jimmy Johnson is being praised. He's the greatest general manager ever. He pulled off this trade, and he did this. And Jerry's thinking, man, he didn't do any of that without my permission. That was my say-so. I could do this. I know what I'm doing. And so he fires Jimmy Johnson because he can't handle not being in the spotlight. And he hires Barry Switzer, and Barry Switzer wins a championship. And Jerry Jones thinks, I'm going to get credit for this. And he doesn't. Everybody talks about how Barry Switzer only won a championship because he had Jimmy Johnson's team. And Jerry Jones has been chasing this idea that I need to build this Super Bowl championship team that has nothing to do with Jimmy Johnson. And he's been working on this for 30 years with nothing to show for it. And I think that's what it is. It's this chase to say that I did this. It wasn't Jimmy's team. It wasn't Jimmy that built it. I think we're seeing the proof that it was Jimmy that built it.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's almost like you're telling a story for a movie, but that's what happened. You think back to the success and all the great things that they were able to build together. And they played college football together. Jimmy and Jerry at the University of Arkansas.
Right,
they were friends.
Yeah,
and the egos got in the way, and separated what could have been a dynasty. Who knows?
Yeah,
I think great things they could have. But
Jimmy Johnson was probably one of the best team builders and coaches that we've seen. And he didn't last long because of the whole Jerry Jones incident. But he could have been the Bill Belichick. I mean, Troy Aikman could have been Tom Brady with 7 Super Bowls had Jimmy Johnson been allowed to. I mean, I can't guarantee that. I can't go in the back of back in the past and foresee what would have been. But they were always there. And I remember hearing a clip years after the Barry Switzer Super Bowl where, it might have been Michael Irvin, and I could be completely wrong on who it was that said this. But if you remember, they won the back-to-backs. Jimmy Johnson gets fired. Barry Switzer comes in. They go to the NFC Championship game, lose to the 49ers. 49ers go on to win the Super Bowl. And then the next year, the Cowboys win the Super Bowl. I've heard reports that these guys went in to Barry Switzer's office and said, look, we'll get you a Super Bowl ring, but we need you to sit down, shut up, and let us do this Jimmy's way. You've come in and tried to change everything, and it didn't work. Yeah, we got close, but it didn't work. We're going to do this Jimmy's way. You sit back, shut up, and enjoy the ride, and when it's all over, you'll have a Super Bowl ring. And they went out and won a Super Bowl. So I love to see the Cowboys have the turmoil that they've had. Win 12 games 12 games 3 years in a row, and then come out this year completely flat. You got guys bickering and arguing on the sidelines. We don't know what's going on. Are you going to be competitive against good teams is yet to be seen. The thing that seems to be the constant is that this Kyle Shanahan zone running scheme offense seems to be your guys' kryptonite because everybody that runs it and why Brian Daboll didn't figure out how. Maybe it's because he just doesn't have the talent to do it. But why Brian Daboll didn't look at every running play that was run against the Dallas Cowboys the last couple weeks and run those exact same plays to at least give it a shot, I don't know. But that seems to be the kryptonite for the Cowboys is this Kyle Shanahan zone running scheme, whether it's you don't have the bodies that are big enough to handle it or what the case may be. But it's been kind of rough to watch, and not because I'm rooting for the Cowboys, because that's never the case. But, me and you being friends, I know how it feels because I've been there, right? We spent 30 years with Dan Snyder as an owner, and he was a little kid with way too much money trying to play fantasy football in real life, and for us, coming into this season, I didn't have a lot of high expectations. I've heard a lot of people that were picking us to win the NFC East or make the wild card playoff, and I wasn't buying into any of that. I've bought into the hype too much as a fan, and hearing the national media finally talk about the Washington Commanders and what we might be able to do for this season. And I've tried to really not buy into the hype this year. I'm really excited about Jaden Daniels. I think he's going to be a star in this league, and I think he showed us what a star he's going to be on Monday night. He had an absolute breakout game, threw two incompletions, had a 91% completion rating, responsible for 3 touchdowns. He threw for 2, ran for 1, and then there were 2 rushing touchdowns by Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler. And our offense seemed to kind of turn a corner. We haven't punted in 8 straight quarters. We have 0 punts. Going back to the New York Giants game.
That is amazing for the rookie.
Right.
That is an awesome stat.
Right.
The 3 and outs are so common with these guys,
Right. And so I think that for me, I went to week 1 in Tampa, and I came in the next week and talked about how bad our offensive line was, how bad the defense looked. I was already looking at top 5 picks to see what might be available when we pick in the top 5, because I was pretty sure that that's where we were going to pick. And we've rattled off 2 decent wins. We played the New York Giants at home, kicked all field goals, and managed to win that game. We were just lucky that they didn't know how to manage their roster and have a field goal kicker, because really, if they would have, that would have been the end of the game. But,
antibiotics. Well, there are antibiotics.
Yeah, the Giants are the antibiotics of the division. If you need a get-right game, just schedule the Giants.
Hey,
but, and then we have this big game. We have this big game on Monday Night Football. You picked Cincinnati in our survivor pool. I think you even had Cincinnati minus 7.5 on your picks last week. And really,
I thought they would roll.
I was in agreement with you. I wasn't going to pick that game because it's my team. I'm not going to bet for them to get blown out. But I really thought that's what was going to happen. We just don't have a great secondary. We haven't had much of a pass rush this season. And our offense hasn't been able to score touchdowns. And I kind of figured that Cincinnati was going to be able to score touchdowns. And they did. We just happened to score more touchdowns than they did. It was the first game since like 1940 or 42 that had 0 punts and 0 turnovers in the whole game. So it was a great game to be a part of, have your team to be a part of, and have your rookie quarterback to be a part of. I do still have a lot of concerns for the talent on the back end of this team. I know there's some guys available that are sitting on their couch you wouldn't even have to trade for that could help shore up our secondary. We could get some veteran leadership back there. I saw a report today that Emmanuel Forbes is active and going to play today, and that's just scary for me because that dude gets torched everywhere he goes. We have an Arizona Cardinals team who their leading receiver is hurt. So I think we have an actual chance to go in and win this game. They went out to Arizona early. I think they flew right out to Arizona from Cincinnati. They didn't even go back home so that way they could get their bodies adjusted to the time difference and really just hone in and focus on the Arizona Cardinals, which I like to see from our coaching staff. I really feel like we're going in the right direction. I have 0 expectation for where we're going to be for this season. It's exciting to see that we have some things to be excited about. We have a head coach that knows how to coach a team. We have an ownership group that cares about our players and putting forth the best product, so much so that they've taken a step back and taken their hands off and hired a real general manager and allow him the grace to do what it is he thinks he needs to do. I haven't agreed with every move that Adam Peters has made this year, whether it be the offseason or early in the season. But I feel like at this point, we've got to trust the process, right? And that was kind of Josh Harris's thing when he was with the Philadelphia 76ers. You know, he still owns them, but that was a whole thing with him and the Embiids and Ben Simmons and stuff. Trust the process, you know, and so I'm in the trust the process stage. We definitely know we have our quarterback of the future. And if you have a quarterback, you have a chance in this league. And so I really like the direction that we're going, trying to go no expectations, but I absolutely loved what I saw from this team on Monday night. The heart, the grit, the fire that they played with, and the just growth and maturity of Jaden Daniels in an instant on the national spotlight, letting people know we are coming. Like this isn't going to be soft forever, you know. So we might have been the cellar dwellers for a long time, but it is a new regime. So
yeah, see, I mean that was big. You're going against Joe Cool on Monday Night Football in his place, and Jaden outduels him.
Yeah,
you know that was exciting to see him just making plays one after another. That the stats you said about the no punts for either team and just consistently moving the ball, moving the chains, finding the end zone. It's impressive. Washington's only punted. You guys have only punted 3 times all year. So even against Tampa, I don't know. I remember what happened in that game, but I know it was a couple score game, right?
Yeah, I can't remember the exact score now. And actually, I think they ended up making it close at the end. I think it ended up being like 10 or 12 points that we lost by. But yeah, we struggled in that game, and mostly on defense. Our offense was moving the ball pretty decent, as it has been all year. We were struggling to find the end zone early. But the defensive side of the ball is where we're struggling at the most. The offensive line could definitely use some help or use some adjusting, but it looks like they're working on that. The scheme that they're using to block is working. Maybe they got some guys that are buying in or switching some guys around. The offensive line looks like it's holding up better than it was week 1 and way better than what it was last year. But the back end of our defense is where we really need our help. You know, cornerback, safety.
Yeah, you guys have given up 9 passing touchdowns, and Jaden got his first 2 last week.
Right. We're allowing a 71.9% completion rating against us. Yeah, and we've allowed 9 touchdowns. We have 0 picks, 8.2 yards per attempt. So, yeah, we need some help in the back end, and some of that could be solved if we could find some rush help, right? I think we only have like 2 or 3 sacks for the season. So we're not getting any pressure on, you know, so the quarterback has all day to throw, and then our corners aren't able to hold up for 8, 10, 12 seconds, however long the quarterback's got back there to sit and find the guy. I did see some promise from a Notre Dame kid, Jean Baptiste. I think he started his career at the University of South Florida and then transferred to Notre Dame last year. And then we drafted him late or signed him as an undrafted free agent. He was a real late pickup for us, but high motor kid. I watched him at Notre Dame last year. He doesn't give up on a play, and so he had his first career sack against Joe Burrow on Monday Night Football. So it'll be interesting to see how that rotation goes. And I feel like as Dan Quinn figures out these players, right? Dan Quinn is a defensive genius. I mean, he had you guys as a top 3 defense every year that he was there as your defensive coordinator. He had a great defense when he was the head coach in Atlanta, and he obviously had the Legion of Boom up in Seattle. So I think as he gets a better feel for the personnel that he has and what he has, they're going to be able to get this thing right, figure out how to scheme it up for what we have right now. I would love to see us, you know, there's the Xavier Howards of the world that are a little bit old out there that sitting on the couch, haven't played yet this season. So there's some help out there that we could get even if it's not somebody you think is going to come in and start every game, but if you could bring some veteran leadership in to help some of these young guys to really show them how to. I think one of the biggest mistakes we made was letting Kendall Fuller go. This is the second time we've let him go. So he's down in Miami thriving. But yeah, so that's where I stand. I'd love to see us find some back end help.
Y'all got a crucial 3-game stretch here where you got Arizona, Cleveland, and Baltimore. And you get somehow, even if somehow you could find a way to win 2 of those, right? You could maybe handle business with Arizona and get Cleveland and lose to Baltimore, or slip up to one of the 3. But if you could somehow be 4-2, or even if you're 3-3, it's the next. So you got these 3 games, and then you get Panthers, Bears, Giants.
Right.
So you got this 3-game stretch that you could somehow stay 500, or even worst case scenario, you go 1-2, you're 4-4, you're 3-3. And then you've got 3 games that are winnable. You got 3 winnable games with a quarterback that's shown he can outduel, Joe Burrow, Monday Night Football, and you could possibly be sitting 6-3.
Right.
And that's crazy to think about, right? Because we're not going to be 6-3. I know that.
You guys have a pretty crucial stretch coming up yourselves, right?
It's crazy. We got to get to our bye week with these injuries, and we try to split and just hopefully be 3-3 going into the bye, and then I really hope we're 6-6.
Yeah,
with our schedule.
Yeah, because you guys. I know you guys got I think San Francisco's after the bye though, or are they before the bye? Because San Francisco's one of your next few games up. I remember.
So we got Steelers, Lions, then a bye.
Okay.
When we come back from the bye, we get Niners, Falcons, Eagles, Texans, Commanders. Then we start with you. We're already to Thanksgiving by the time we get to 11/24. And that's what Let's say we beat the Steelers, we lose to the Lions, and that's kind of how I can see this schedule going with what I've seen from my team. I'm going to win one, I'm going to lose one. Steelers, Lions, win, 3-3. Lose to the Niners, beat the Falcons. Eagles, Texans, don't know who we beat, who we lose to, but 1-1. And there, as the season goes, and it's like, when are we going to get? Can we get a 3-game win streak and get enough above, make the playoffs? And it's at the end of the year, luckily, is not as bad. We do have Bengals, Panthers, Bucks, Eagles, and then you end the year with you guys, which both of us could be looking, for a wild card.
Correct. Yeah, that could be the game that determines who goes in. That could be the game that determines who goes in.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, I knew you guys had.
I hope it is.
I knew you guys had a rough stretch. I've heard Keyshawn Johnson and TJ Hushmanzada talking about that you guys could be 1-5 over your next 6 games. And they were counting the Giants. Like, you guys beat the Giants and then drop everything else. So, I don't know that it'll go that bad for you. Mike McCarthy is a good coach, but I almost wonder if part of the problem with you guys this year is that he doesn't have an extension. These guys aren't playing hard for him because they don't think he's going to be the head coach of the football team next year. There's that lame duck head coach.
They think they got they're not out there giving it their all to know that this guy might not be here next year.
Right.
I just can't think I just can't bring myself to think like that yet. I may see it later when they're giving up on plays and maybe guys are twisting an ankle and sitting out 4 weeks, but we're not there yet. And I hope that, just.
I mean, and you would hope that as professional football players, right? Because we attach that term to these guys is professional football players, and not all of them act professional, right? And that becomes the issue. Is I love a guy and I like what his talent says, but can he be professional? Can he play through whatever drama is going on? Can he come and show up to the office? Because that's what the field is the office. And can I get you to put on your suit and leave all the BS at the gate? Whether it's I have a lame duck head coach, this guy's not going to be here next year, I haven't gotten my money, everybody else is getting paid, whatever the case, can I get you to be a professional and show up, put your suit on, and go to work? And I think so far you guys have had that, but if we get down the road and it really starts looking bad, whether it be because the defense and Mike Zimmer's scheme's not working, or the offense because you don't have a running game. Do we see these guys give up on the season? Did we see these guys give up on Mike McCarthy at all at some point in time in this season if things don't start to turn around? Because, you talked about possibly beating Pittsburgh. The one thing about them is they have that nasty defense. And Justin Fields may not be playing out of his mind, but he's playing well enough to win. He's playing better than I think anybody that watches football gave him the credit for being able to play. And so as you guys come through this stretch and try to get to the bye week, you got 2 really tough games ahead of you, and if you go into that bye week 5, and you've lost both of them, and you're sitting at 2-4 going into the bye week, what is the rumblings in the locker room? What does the professionalism look like? Dak talked about it the other night after the loss to the Baltimore. We need to be more professional on the sidelines. You guys were
absolutely
arguing and fighting, and I know how that feels as a fan watching that, because I've seen that on our sidelines for so many years. We had way too much talent to be as bad as we were. Yet we were.
Dak Prescott is the key. He's why he's worth money, and he's why he's our franchise quarterback. Is he can handle it. He's always composed. His downfall has been his performance in playoff games. But other than that, that is the guy I want leading my franchise. He's going to do the right thing. He's going to lead by example. He can command the huddle, command the locker room, and the guys just have to follow suit. There's always going to be a few guys that have their temper tantrums, but as long as that guy is saying the right thing and leading us, I feel good about everyone's going to stay on board. Of course, it could go off the rails. It absolutely could, and that's just because
most definitely
Jerry's going to say something, right? The wrong guys are saying stuff.
Yeah.
Even Micah, his interview I didn't like in the locker room. I like what he said on his podcast. I like what he cleaned it up later. But when he initially came out in the locker room talking about people need to make plays, unless he was talking about himself, which he very well may have been, but trying to act like Superman and we need to work together. It's you, Micah. You're the one that is out there not making plays, and the defense needs you making plays. You're the one. You guys are not sacking the quarterback. You're not forcing fumbles. We're not getting turnovers this year.
Right.
And that's another big thing that Dan Quinn benefited a lot from is, man, we took the ball away. We were constantly, and that's because we would get out to a lead, and those guys were teeing off on quarterbacks, and they were throwing, making bad throws, fumbling, and it was just pressure. And now they're saying, oh, that Micah's got 14 pressures, and I'm going, what game are y'all watching?
Well, and that's the thing is Micah Parsons is about to ask for Nick Bosa and TJ Watt money. I need to see Nick Bosa and TJ Watt production every year for you to get. I mean, those dudes never stop. It doesn't matter if they're double teamed or triple teamed or they're being schemed against. They find a way to get to the quarterback. And Micah has not done that this year. So cool, man. You guys have already played. We got our big games tomorrow afternoon. We got a 4:00 kickoff for Arizona. What do you got pick wise for the NFL?
So I went with 3 dogs this week.
Ooh.
And I'm going to take some points in the NFL. I'm going to go with Denver +8.
I like that. I have that too.
Yeah. I want to take I got the Chargers +8.
Yep.
For the life of me, I can't remember who they're playing. Let me see that real quick.
They're playing the Chiefs.
Chiefs, yep. Chiefs +8. So +8 against the Chiefs. And then I got Jacksonville is going to fight this week after what happened Monday night, and they are +6.
So I ended up picking 5 games because I didn't know how many you were going to pick, and all 3 of those games are on my 5-game pick. So I'm going to...
You guys hear that? Bet the other way, guys. Subscribing to StarCommand, you get some real cash money out there.
Right. So I'm going to hang with you on the Jaguars +6 just because of the rule that you turned me on to, was that anytime a team is +6 or +6.5, they almost always cover and win. And Houston has no run game this week. Joe Mixon's out again. And we saw against Minnesota last week that without Joe Mixon in there is not anybody that knows how to run the ball for Houston. So without a run game, going up against a Jacksonville team that's an in-division rival, Those games are always coin tosses. I don't care what the point spread is or how good a team is or isn't. Division games are always tough. So I will take the Jags +6. I also like Washington +3.5. I don't know if we win this game, but the hook is what got me, right? I don't know that Arizona's 4 points better than us. They might beat us by a field goal, but I don't see them being able to beat us by a touchdown. And so that's why I carry that hook with me, right? I'll take the +3.5. Then I like Detroit -3.5 at home on Monday Night Football. There's just something hopping about Motown right now, and they don't get primetime games, right? So Monday Night Football crew, ESPN showing up to town in the Motor City. Those fans are going to be lit and ready to go, and I think Detroit gets back to running the ball.
That's a real thing,
right?
When those cities, you're right. That emotion is so high. It's hard to fend that off for that first quarter because it's like a freaking.
I mean, if you
coming downhill.
Right. If you look at that playoff game against the Rams, that could have gone either way. The way the teams were playing, the emotion in that city to be hosting a playoff game after so much futility, right? And here we're kind of in the same position. This isn't a playoff game. But this city hasn't had a Monday Night Football crew in their town in who knows how long, right? They're not the primetime guys. Nobody comes to Detroit for primetime games. And now you're going to have the Jason Kelsey and Scott Van Pelts and all these different people show up to your city for a Monday Night Football game because you're actually good enough for somebody to care about putting you on Monday Night Football, and I think the emotion runs high. Eminem will probably be there. It'll probably be the whole hoopla that it really should be, and I think the emotion of that crowd
in the Motor City, baby.
right. So cool. Yeah, I think that was a great show, man. I really liked being able to talk about our teams and get our insights. We'll probably do that again here in a couple of weeks when we have a little bit bigger sample size, see where we're at in the standings and how things are going. I think we might have a winning weekend this weekend with all the same picks that we had in the NFL anyway. So make sure that you guys hit that like and that subscribe button. We're kind of stuck at 20 subscribers right now. We've kind of hit that plateau. We could really use your guys' support. Share it with your friends, anybody that you know that might like sports, whether they like the Commanders or Cowboys or not. We don't always just talk about our teams. We like to talk about the whole league as a whole. So if you could just share that out with us and help us get some support. We appreciate all you guys. With that, the Star Command is out.